welcome everyone to yet another episode of EliteCISOs podcast. And this week we are going to talk about a very interesting topic around threat hunting. And to talk about this topic, we have Mr. Kumar Ravi from EXL with us. So go ahead, Mr. Kumar, introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hi, Vikas. Good morning. And my relevant introduction would be that I lead the cybersecurity portfolio for EXL, and it's a global role. There are various things that come part of the cybersecurity. It's like developing the program, aligning ourselves to the framework, and building various capabilities which align with the cybersecurity, I would say framework of NIST, which is like in the areas of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. I also lead the technical cybersecurity assessments, which is more of the offensive security side of the cybersecurity, which includes infrastructure assessments, which includes cybersecurity assessments, including red team exercise, including the cyber drills that we perform and red teaming exercise. I think they all become part of that offensive security part of it. So that's like one program. That's one big program. So if I were to put it in, kind of a context of red team, blue team, so I think I definitely oversee the red team. At the same time, I also oversee the blue team. So it's somewhere in between. That's where my role lies on the offensive security and defensive security part. Yeah.
Wonderful,
so,
wonderful.
And just to add more on that, that I've been working with EXL for now close to 10 years. And overall, I think now I carry experience of 21, 22 years kind of experience.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Wonderful. Great. So first of all, I'm very happy to hear a CISO talk about offensive security, because most of the time we talk about defensive security, right? Hackers are attacking us, defend this, defend that. So that's very interesting to hear, you talking about the offensive security part. Now, in your introduction, you talked about multiple buzzwords, right? Like red teaming, blue teaming, threat hunting. So help our audience understand, what do you mean by red teaming, blue teaming, purple teaming, and what is this threat hunting all about?
Okay, so I think it's an interesting area. I would say that's how I see that. And before I get into the context of the cybersecurity, I think first an analogy, so that people understand what it is and why it is. For those who are new, I'm sure many of us, or rather all of us, would know that. But that's how I see it. Is I think you study throughout the year, and then you keep on studying, and at the end you give an exam to test how good you were at the studies. But I think in the cybersecurity world, this is what is a phenomena that we don't see quite often, although it is catching up. So what I mean to say, you keep on building your security stacks, your security layers, defense in depth, everything. But do you ever test it? You undergo audits. That's a separate area. You undergo risk assessments under ISO or other kind of regulatory assessments. But from a hacker point of view, have you ever tested your readiness, that how good you are if an attacker or a perpetrator or an adversary were to get into your network? Would you be able to detect it? Will you be able to protect? Will you be able to defend, stop? I think this is what is an exercise that gives you that confidence. So I think if I talk about the red team and a blue team, it's actually, I would say it's a simulation and a training exercise where the members of the organization are kind of, split up into two parts. And, they kind of compete in a combative exercise wherein one team is attacking, trying to identify the loopholes, vulnerabilities, and they want to, kind of do a capture the flag movement. And on the other side, the blue team would be, they would be trying to defend you, detect your TTPs, detect your how you are kind of perpetrating. They will try to stop it, patch it. So all that, good cop, bad cop kind of a situation is something which is red team and a blue team. And it gives you a lot of learnings because I think once you test your network, you understand that, okay, if that particular, let's say, Mimikatz was run, it never raised an attack. It never raised an alert. Why it did not raise it? Or maybe the alert was, raised, but it was not picked up by the SOC analyst. So all those kinds of people, process, and technology related findings you get to see when you do these kind of exercises. So I think very important in today's world where we are living in an assumed breaches kind of a scenario. And we all understand that it's not a matter of time, but it's just like maybe it's already there. You need to detect it. So I think that's where it helps you to dig out your weak areas and gives you an opportunity to improve it.
Right, makes sense. So these are the internal teams. So one is the attacking team, other is the defending team. And when they help each other, that's kind of a purple team or something. That's what they call it. So what is purple teaming?
Per Purple team, I would say, is like, probably overseeing both the areas. I call in this case, kind of a team which is overseeing the both side of the things that are happening, what attacks were, kind of made on the other side, what
Right.
I would say defensive or reactive things that were matched with those attacks. So
Mhm.
basically, purple team kind of has a visibility, as I see, of both the areas. And, it's more done in collaboration with the blue team and the red team. They both understand each other, they both know what are gonna be done,
Right.
and that's how, it's not kind of done in very silos, I would say.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So red team is clear, blue team is clear, purple teaming is clear. Now let's come back to the topic of this webcast. What do you understand by, let's say, threat hunting, or what threat hunting is all about?
Okay, so threat hunting, yes, definitely. I think it's I would say, I don't know if we want to call it still a very, upcoming area. I think a lot of
Mhm.
organizations are today embracing it. So threat hunting, I think it's how I see it, it's a process of, proactively looking for any, I would say, traces of any attack or assumed breaches that you can think of, and and to look for in your network if they are prevailing in
Right.
your network, because the hypothesis is that maybe if somebody evaded your defense mechanisms, and
Mhm.
it is now sitting in your network quietly, subtly, do you have any capabilities or any stream of detection which can look out for that? Because if an attack really evaded the defenses and it came in, either it can be flagged by your IDS, IPS, or an anti-APT or an EDR kind of solution, but still, if it slips through all, do you have any second eye which can
Right.
detect for those, traces, and it can give you that particular area of identification is something, threat hunting. So it's actually a proactively searching. You don't really start working on the pretext of a alert that has come, but
Mhm.
you are thinking on your own, you are building a hypothesis, you are looking for some incident that happened somewhere, and that
Mhm.
has given you certain, let's say, indicator of compromise or indicator of
Mhm.
attacks. Now you proactively go back and look at into your network. Hey, is this IP, which is, let's say, an IOC or an IOA, is it
Right.
something that is also prevailing in your company? You go and maybe query the firewall logs that did somebody made a connection with this IP. So it is a kind of, going back into your logs, looking for something which was not alerted, which
Right.
slipped through maybe everything, and then it gives
Mhm.
you that, second level of intelligence on top of your regular monitoring. So it
Right.
goes hand in hand with the incident, I would say, a response. It goes in hand in hand with the incident investigation. But yes, it is a parallel stream that doesn't start from an incident. It
Mhm.
starts much before an incident, or rather, in other case, which is a contrast, that
Mhm.
incident has happened, but it is lying undetected. It could be both the cases. All
Right.
in all, it
Right.
is proactive. All in all,
It's
it is a
proactive, right?
proactive approach.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So organizations traditionally have been doing penetration testing and all. So is threat hunting different from traditional pen tests that organizations go for?
Yeah, I would say entirely different, because in penetration testing, you are testing whether are you vulnerable or not. Uh, is a SQL injection possible in your network or not? Can somebody evade my, VPN security and come in or not? These are the offensive way of checking your, I would say, environment, ID environment. But in
Mhm.
case of threat hunting, you assume that somebody has already done that, so you don't try breaking that. Means you don't have to be really a pen tester if you have to
Mhm.
do a threat hunting.
Mhm.
Rather, the relevant skills would be, you have to be a person who has got good understanding of incident response. You have to
Mhm.
have good, I would say, knowledge of the context of the organization, because in case of threat hunting, context of the organization for which you're doing it really plays an important role. You
Right.
have to be very good at malware analysis. You have to be
Mhm.
very well aware with the, behaviors of the various network protocols that are there.
Mhm.
so that you understand what are the right, I would say, behaviors, and you actually go and creatively look for anomalies in other ways, or you look for, the abnormal syndromes that are maybe, affecting
Right.
the overall situation. So threat
Right.
hunting is offensive, and this is more of investigative in nature. So I think these two definitely are different.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. It makes it very clear. Now, talking about benefits of threat hunting. So, do you think that organizations can benefit from threat hunting as well, apart from having penetration testing and then going for threat hunting as well? What are the benefits for the organizations? Let's say.
Okay, so I think benefits are, like, I would say, multifold. And when I
Hmm.
say that, it is like I said, it's a case of assumed breach.
Hmm.
What if your, IDS IPS did not raise an alert? What if your EDR did not raise an alert? There are two things. You can sit, calmly and assume that yes, nothing happened because you have got best in class state of the, security stack, and nothing is really happening. The other approach could be, no, let me still go and look out for any anomalies, maybe, these tools that could not detect. So I think once you go for that, you definitely find out some areas. Something like, if I just give an example, the most easiest example of a threat hunting could be, you look for what are the various EXCs which are permissible in my organization, and it's not easy.
Right.
You can go to the, task manager, you can start creating a library, and then you go back and see in all your computers that which is the other EXE which is running. It
Hmm.
might give you a plethora of information that what are the various EXEs that are running in.
Right.
So I think with this kind of simple test or a simple, technique or a one use case of a threat hunting, you can know what are the unauthorized softwares that are running in your network, and then it
Hmm.
gives you the visibility, it gives you the right wisdom, so that you can go and unplug all those EXEs. The benefits would be you are able to maintain your network clean from any, I would say, adversaries, droppers
Hmm.
that have been, left out in your environment, and then
Right.
accordingly you can clean it up. It really doesn't wait for an incident to really happen.
Hmm.
It preempts that, okay, something might be going fishy, why don't you look at it?
Hmm.
So I think that's one benefit, I would say. And in other words, it works as a second eye parallel to the incident investigation and starts much before that.
Right.
It also helps, this capability also helps you in increasing the speed of the incident response. And
Hmm.
then it also reduces the investigation time window. So these are the various, I would say, benefits of, investing your money, time, efforts into the threat hunting kind of, area.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, is it something that you do internally with your internal team, or this is something you can outsource to a third party? I mean, what's your opinion around that?
Okay, so I think to answer that, I would first like to, kind of share that
Hmm.
the threat hunting also is kind of, various
Hmm.
types. And if I can say types, it can be hypothesis driven, means
Hmm.
you assume that, this is the normal way of doing it, but what if this would have happened, or an attacker could have come from a firewall, or maybe from an endpoint, and he might have probably done some kind of, let's say, Kerberos attack, which is, like, I think quite simple. I have seen in many organizations. I think this is
Right.
still a weakness that remains.
Right.
And then this command would have run, and then maybe he or she might have taken out your credentials, might have done some lateral movement. So you create a hypothesis, and you look for, if this would have happened, what would have been the kind of logs that would have got generated. And it is out of
Right.
totally on your creativity. You have to think like a hacker. You have to think like, what are the various ways to do offensive security. And that's the beauty of having, the offensive security side of knowledge when you do the threat hunting, right? So that's one which is hypothesis driven. The second one is based on the known IOCs or IOA. You do a retrospective search in your, entire, I would say, log sources across
Hmm.
various devices, and you look for that, did it happen in my network as well? And I think, this is the most simplest thing. You get, file hashes, you get IP addresses, file dropper names, URLs, domain names, all those, and you just go and do a retrospective search. It will definitely give you a plethora of exercises. And that's what I think all of us do whenever kind of WannaCry, PET, or maze kind of things happen. A lot of
Right.
IOCs are generated, and then you go back
True.
and look into it. And that's like, the basic most
Hmm.
thing. And the third is like advanced analytics and machine learning based kind of, models that exist that help you do in the threat hunting space. So I would say it's it's a mixed approach. It's not that you can not do with an in-house team, or you have to go to, kind of outsource third party provider. But yes, I think a mix of both is a good approach, I would say, and they both have got their merits and demerits, because I think a good threat hunter would not come cheap. When I say, a good means it's a really good one who can really, think like, I would say, a threat hunter. At the same time, you definitely need to rely upon the technologies to make it an automated process. You definitely need a person who has been in the organization, if I talk about insider one, who knows the context of the organization, who knows what is the normal and what is the abnormal, who can very clearly differentiate. So insider definitely have an edge over the outsider, but at the same time, the outsiders bring in kind of, I would say, a richness or a maturity to the overall program. Sometimes it may be part of your MDR service, which is managed detection and response service. So I think there is no harm in doing that. I think even at EXL, we follow the mixed approach, and the co-sourcing, I think, is the right model for that.
Right. So I think it's a complicated topic that we're talking about. We are talking about lot of search, right? Like big data kind of search, going through your environment and searching for a lot of data. So the skill set, it's very unique for a threat hunter. So do you see the threat hunting skill set is readily available in the market, or do you have to rely on the vendors mostly for conducting the threat hunting exercises? What do you think around that?
So I think, like I said, I think it is both. You have to have the context of the organization for you to be a good threat hunter. But I think you may not have those skilled people. I think what I would say, you can think of grooming your SOC analyst into threat hunters, right? Because they have been working in your organization. They know the network architecture. They know the security layer stack. They know what is permissible, what is not. So all in all, they have got a good context of the organization. If you groom them into the threat hunters, I think they would definitely prove to be an asset. But yes, this should not be a showstoppers. Not everyone might have the knack or an inclination to be a threat hunter, because I think it is a job that is full of passion. You should have. Otherwise, it's not something that you can just train yourself on if you are not having a passion for it. So it's a kind of, getting deeper into the protocols, getting deeper into the, I would say, logs, finding out what is hidden. You have to think of a scenario if I'm talking about the manual or a hypothesis-based threat hunting. So if you have a passion, I think you can definitely groom it inside. You have to identify those team members who can be, made or put on the path of being threat hunters. Till that time, you have, like I said, MDR services. You have got external, maybe nowadays, a lot of tools also which are coming. They are claiming that, they do threat hunting and all. Till that time, I think all those things are there, but the human element is very important, because that provides the context to the organization, and they can very easily eliminate the false positive, at the same time false negatives.
Makes sense. Wonderful. So let's say we get into threat hunting exercise and we are doing it over and over again, one day, 1 week, 1 month, and we don't find anything, right? Is it something to be happy about and sit and relax, or do you recommend that, no, keep on doing it? It's a continuous process. What do you think around that?
I think it should run like a continuous program. It starts. So any organization would start from doing it like on an ad hoc or a periodic basis. So let's say you get IOCs, you do retrospective searches. That's where it starts, right? Or a manual process would be a person. You're one of the SOC analysts who is really having a knack for that kind of learning. He thinks of, or she thinks of something that I must do that. So they may build a scenario, they may do that. All in all, it starts from that kind of a nascent stages, wherein it is very ad hoc, depending on the will of the person or the interest of the person. But slowly and gradually, it moves on to. Okay, so I think if you don't find anything in your network, I think I would say you really need to kind of look at what is your current model. using which you are doing the threat hunting. Uh, I think if you're looking for certain IOCs on the pretext of certain attack that happened somewhere, and if you don't find any traces, probably that's okay. Maybe that attack has not happened to you. But in general, if you are not finding any, I would say, threat hunting results, even after, I would say, deploying certain AI ML based off tools, or even if you do kind of a retrospective search based on any threat handle, continuously you're not getting any this, I would say, any traces. I think you should definitely look for it. But yeah, I think it's only 1% chance that you don't find anything out of doing threat hunting for a long time, because I think you all would agree that we are living in an era of assumed breaches, where it is given that you might be under attack or who are already under the attack. But yeah, on the other side, you may be very lucky as well that you don't find anything. So I think, but it's not a very, I would say, a happy situation to be in if you don't find anything. Rather, you should find something, and it should giving you some sort of actions to do.
Right. Let me ask you this: what to find? Is there a playbook? Is there a hypothesis model? Are there any resources that people can refer to while they are beginning with threat hunting?
Yeah. So, like I said, there are three types of threat hunting. One is hypothesis model based. One is IOC or IOA kind of retrospective search basis, and then there is AI and ML based kind of algorithms and models that you can really adopt to. So, I think they all have different I would say area of search or threat hunting. Let's say in case of IOA and IOC, you probably look at certain popular attacks that are happening somewhere, or some breach has been dissected, and you get an IOC and IOA of that, and you really want to check, hey, am I also under attack because of the same attack? I think that's what you can look for. And the IOCs over there that you generally get are the hashes of the files, any dropper file names, you get IP addresses, URLs to which your people might have contacted, maybe not people, but the malware which is sitting inside. That's one area of doing the threat hunting, and that's what you can look for. The other is hypothesis based, which is more of a like creativity of the person. It heavily relies on the person who is a threat hunter, and I think the person can really develop those hypotheses, those creative scenarios of breaches. You need to stitch around a story in your mind, and then you need to start looking in that direction, because there is nothing which is giving you a clue that this incident has happened or this has gone bad. This is not something an IDS or IPS alert on the pretext of which you will start doing the threat hunting. So you have to think on your own. I think if you Google maybe certain threat hunting scenarios, you can get some sample ones. A very basic one which I took an example of, you can start whitelisting your EXE files, and you can do a search which other EXEs are running on top of it. Is a very nascent example. The other could be who is talking to the I would say a bad actor, and why. If you have got threat intel feeds, that enhance the quality of your threat hunting, because not only you are now able to see communication with a command and control server which is a bad listed IP, at the same time you also have other leads that okay, on the same machine you have got a file dropper as well which matched an IOC. So maybe a very likely situation that it has got an IOC as well in terms of a file dropper. It also made a bad connection, a connection with a bad IP address. So that's how you can correlate. And maybe no IDS maybe will give you an alert for that. So that's are the things or directions you can look for when you go for threat hunting. And then obviously there are AI ML based kind of I would say models which exist. So let's say even in EXL, we have got some 16 models that are running, which are in the category of proxy, which are in the category of IDS, Windows, firewalls, VPNs, and Microsoft, Office 365. So we do look for malware beaconing as a threat hunting use case. We do look for, I would say,
Okay, great. That's great insights, Mr. Ravi. Now, talking about the last question, let's say somebody has never been into threat hunting. It's an organization which has been into traditional pen testing and all, and they want to embark on a journey of threat hunting. So, what is your advice? How they can start? for threat hunting, let's say?
Okay, I think it definitely, I would say if the company doesn't have an experience and the person himself or the lady himself does not have an experience who is in charge of setting up this practice, I think it's always good to, I would say research about it, talk to the service providers who are in this space, get yourself acquainted with what are the various capabilities that hunting can bring to you, have your own use cases around which you would want to do threat hunting, look for certain use cases that are running. So all in all, what I'm hinting as is that you should do enough research before you make a decision of whether you should go for an internal grooming of resources into threat hunters, because that will really take a lot of time. And then again, people are something which are not constant. They keep maybe switching. You may not have a team which is doing it continuously years on years for you. And then on the other side, I'm not sure how much of budget you may have to really engage I would say a service provider, and it actually entirely depends on your budget as well. So I think you need to first identify what are your use cases or areas of threat hunting, which are the good service providers or technologies which are sitting in this space, and then you can also have a balance of external and internal. Slowly and gradually you can designate, earmark certain people who you can put them as the leads for the threat hunting, who can build the practice for you. So that is what is on the I would say area of external versus internal. On the other side, if I say there are three types of threat hunting, like I said, manual, hypothesis based, and AI ML based. So you also need to look into that area. So depending on your need of the organization and what kind of cyber threats that you're suscepting, I think that's where you need to find a right balance between the on the tangents of money, time, and interest of the organization.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Great insights. I think those are the questions I wanted to ask. So we have recorded this podcast. This will go on YouTube and website as well. And I think people can watch and gain insights into how to start with threat hunting overall. Great. So thanks a lot, Mr. Ravi. Appreciate you taking out time and coming to the podcast. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks a lot, because it's always been a pleasure. Thank you very much.